you're listening to It Came From the Radio, you know this is Jennifer Lee Feldy, aka L-Man, aka Dr. Feldy, but enough about me. We're here with Nkrumah Mensah. She is an author. She will write at least seven tales or so, I've heard. I think she'll write probably 20 different things. And here she is. Welcome.
Hello, it's good to be here with you.
So
I'm
this isn't
excited
one of
about
my
this.
This wasn't one of my written questions, but you have Anne of Survivor, which full disclosure, I did not read. So if I sound a little confused, but I read a lot of the reviews and it kind of reminds me of like an inverted backwards, like Pretty Woman, because for the listeners, let's see if I'm getting this right. She turns down an arranged marriage with a duke, I want to say, someone with a lot of money. And instead, she goes to hang out with, I think, a prostitute, a mute boy, and his donkey and works on a ship instead of working, being with the rich guy. Am I right or is this totally wrong?
It's sort of right. So the character Anne, she's actually a minor royal herself. She's the daughter of a baron, so very bottom of the barrel royal. And her family, of like many royal families, they want to kind of rise up and be closer to the king. And so the king's half brother has a son, and he wants his son to marry Anne. And well, Anne, she doesn't want to marry the son. She kind of thinks of him as a spoiled little rich kid. So when she basically humiliates her family, and then she runs away from home and joins a merchant ship and has all these adventures. But what she's running from, she doesn't realize that it was something small in comparison to what she threw herself into. So what she throws herself into is so crazy. It decides the fate of the entire kingdom.
Oh, okay. So what inspired this story? Did you turn down some arranged situation ever in your life or know someone who did and then choose a total different life? Like what inspired this whole story?
I did have an arrangement that I turned down,
Oh,
but I had a friend who I didn't write this for myself. I wrote this for my friend, and she did not turn down her arrangement.
okay.
So she was the very dutiful girl, and she went through with it. And, long story short, now she is happily married. She has two kids, and she went through with it and had a different roundabout story. But this was the story. Hey, if you left, and this was the late 1500s, maybe this could have happened.
Gotcha. Okay. I was wondering. I was like, who walked away from who in her life? Like, what's going on here? Okay, that's always fun. Do you find that it's more fun to write about something that you're totally making up in your head, or do you think it's more fun to write about something that's sort of relevant to your real life? You can pull on things.
I like to answer questions. So I'll get a question in my head, like, okay, what if? And then
Okay.
I'll answer the question in a story.
Oh, okay. I like that. Yeah, you definitely seem to have an interesting writing process because let's see if I can find my question. Well, okay. You said in a video that you try not to read much while you're writing to avoid like possibly stealing or, quote, getting inspired. And I used to do stand up. I feel like a lot of stand up comedians will actually watch other people's shows to get ideas or I don't know, maybe steal stuff. So that to me, that's just very unique right away. So do you know any other authors that consciously steal ideas, or has it happened to you where you're like, wait a second, I was just reading this earlier, now I'm stealing?
No, I I I have a tendency if I read something or if I hear something, then it becomes a part of whatever I'm working on. And I want this to be completely my process. I don't know anybody who really steals. I hope that nobody's out there just stealing somebody else.
Probably. If I stealing your stories.
Well, my stories are copyrighted, so don't do that. But that being said, I hope my stories can inspire someone to create something new and all on their own. I wouldn't mind someone taking Anne and doing a spin-off if they wanted to. I think that would be fun, or even to do a collaboration with someone. I think that would be pretty exciting.
Okay, so one of my last interviews was one of the main creators of Tales from the Crypt. What about that type of combo? You mix up Tales from the Crypt with Anna Survivor, or maybe the I Wish I Had a Latino Crypt Keeper. I don't know. So that's gonna go to my next question. So you wrote one tale, which I didn't read. And this is what I do. I'll have an interview with someone and then I'll decide if they're interested or not. And then afterwards I'll start stalking them after I'm like, oh, and I already decided she's very interesting. But full disclosure, I did not read I Wish I Had a Latino, and you wrote it. And this is actually true. I was reminded of this about my dad. It went into my stand-up act that I was around 4 years old. I was cleaning my room. I said, man, I wish I had a wife to clean my room because that's what wives do. So, what is like, I wish I had a Latino all about? Were you wishing you had a Latino one day? Like, what happens?
Actually, that story was a bunch of girlfriends and I, we were out together having drinks, and one of them was going through a breakup. And there was this table next to ours, a beautiful young woman with her Latino lover. And it turns out not just lover, they were married, but he opened the door for her. He pulled the chair out for her. She was drinking something and ran out, and he went and got the waiter and brought the waiter back. And I
Wow.
was like, is this crap actually happening? I'm like, this has got to be like date three. And so I asked, and they happened to be married. And my friend was like, well, damn, I wish I had a Latino. And I was like, right?
So, what's that all about? Like, can you give us a little preview into that one?
So I wish I had a Latino is about a young woman who goes through a horrible breakup, and her best friend helps her work through everything, and she starts getting back into the dating world and dating all sorts of others. That's what I'm Ghanaian American, so what we say is outside of dating outside your race is dating other. So she decides to date other.
Gotcha. Okay. Got it. Well, I will say, most of my exes are half Latinos. Full Latino, that's another story, but half Latino has been very good for me. And what you described was one of my friends called Janet. I call her boss lady. And yes, one of her workers was a Latino who worked for her. And that is what he did. He grabbed her whatever she needed and was like her servant. So they do exist. And I wish I had a Latino, that there is a lot of truth to that. So moving on to another tale Nkrumah wrote. I saw in another interview she called her white lady name was Christina, which I thought was really funny. And I said, well, let's leave that name out of it today, okay? So would it be Miss Mensa or Mrs. Mensa?
Ms. Just
Ms.
Ms.
Mensa. All right.
There's no Mrs. anymore.
Okay, so Ms. Mensa, we're gonna move on to another tale you wrote called The Chart. Now, I'm actually a trained psychic. I didn't really think anything, I didn't know what existed, but that's another whole story of why I am a trained psychic because I wanted to learn to have some type of opinion. I don't know. So anyway, a lot of people think that there's something called the Akashic Records that holds every single thing that we've ever done or predestined. You can find it in this book called the Akashic Records. Now, you wrote the chart, which has a summary, which is you're being watched, you're being protected. Your spirit guides and angels are there to ensure you fulfill your life chart. So, what happens if they aren't there to prevent your premature death? What comes of the chart and the charts of those you were meant to be with? So, some people do think their entire lives are charted out, maybe in the Akashic Records, which my mom asked me if that was a record company. Okay. What kind of specific things do you believe about fate or destiny or life paths?
Oh my gosh, it depends on the day, but I believe in all of it. So it's like I I personally feel like life in and of itself is like a classroom. And when
Mhm.
we're on the other side, before we come into life, we choose which courses we're going to take. And then as we work through our lives, we do better in some classes than others. And after you pass on, you get back to the other side and you get to go over your grades. That's like the think the best way of me to describe it. I
Mhm.
feel like our lives completely charted out. I think in some ways, yes. I think that if you believe in God, universe, whatever, they know because they're all knowing. They know what you're going to choose. They know what you're going to decide. They know which path you're going to take. Do you know? No, it's all new to you. So
Hmm.
I think we as linear beings, we can only see the next step in front of us, but that's not to say that someplace else they know everything. And
Right.
when I created the chart, I was playing around with that idea, like we created a chart. The chart is kept in the Hall of Wisdom, and everybody can read it except us as we work
Yeah.
through our classes and live through our lives.
Yeah, that's a very interesting one to me. And that's how it's pretty much described and by all these psychic leaders and exactly what you heard right here with the woman with the beautiful glasses and hair and one of my favorite backdrops. I love this whole backdrop
Okay,
situation.
it's my
I,
house.
yeah, no, it looks great. I love it. I love it. I love the gold and the green. I'm all about golds and greens, all about it. All right, so we're gonna move on similar vein now. The collective consciousness. That's sort of an idea that's related to this. Michael Jackson, I think, believed that I think it was Michael Jackson, or maybe sorry, maybe it was Prince, not to say an idea out loud. I think it was Prince, not to say an out loud idea out loud because they could steal it. So, wondering, do you believe there's a collective consciousness? Like, do you believe that once we say something audibly or even think it, now it's out there and other people could take your ideas or share from it or steal from it?
I do, but I'm not stingy with it. So if I
Okay.
have something, and I used to be very much like that. I didn't share Anne of Survivor with anyone for 20 years.
Oh my God.
So I kept it all to myself, and it's kind of like my baby. And as I got older, I was like, I need to know, is my baby worth anything? Are people going to
Wow.
like the story? And so I began to share it with people that I really cared for and that I trusted to give me their, uh, you know, actual feedback, not I love you. I'm going to tell you it's wonderful feedback. I wanted real feedback. Like, where could I change things? Where is this good? Where is it falling off? And once I started doing that, I felt more comfortable sharing other things. And if someone takes my idea and they make something else, that's fine. Because at the end of the day, what I create is going to be different from what you create or what someone else creates because you haven't lived my life. I haven't lived your life. And we have other things around us that are influencing what we think and what we do on a daily basis.
Definitely. Definitely. And I don't believe in spoilers because you can't recreate the experience of watching something on TV or reading something for me. So give me all the spoilers you want because you can't recreate the experience. You just can't. But that's a very unpopular opinion. So we know
Well,
now that,
I am
yes.
of that opinion. Oh my gosh. I'm totally like that. My daughter gets so angry with me if I go online and I read ahead. If we're watching a show and I'm like, I just had to know. I just had to know.
Even if you told me the whole damn thing, like the movie It, I never saw it, but I know everything because someone summarized it in like 20 minutes, and I was scared for days. So I did have some of the experience, but no one can put you through the experience of watching, the stupid show I'm watching on TV. It's not gonna happen. So
Exactly.
now we know that you don't read a ton while you're writing in writing mode, which, massive respect that you would even care to be that ethical to not steal ideas. I mean, that's a level of ethics that I don't think most people have. So, what are some rituals that you actually do before or during your writing?
I like to go for hikes. So
Mm,
if I am stuck, I will step away and I'll go for a hike, whether it be 4 miles or 8 miles, just to be in nature, because that kind of opens my mind up a bit.
yeah,
I
yeah.
also, the things I do read are historic stuff. Like I'll read Tudor history. While I'm writing Anne's series, I'm reading The Plantagenets by Dan Jones. because royals are kind of crazy and they're really messed up. And I think it's funny to see the power structures and how that all of that worked out. And I will also read things that I have already read before. So with Anne, it's historic fiction. And so I will read Shakespeare just for the language.
Wow.
And I don't do Elizabethan language because then nobody would read my books except for geeks like me. But to get the flavor and the feeling of the language, and even that time period is before the time period that I'm writing about. But there's a way that Shakespeare words things where it's absolutely beautiful. It's almost as if it's not just words, it's pictures. And I try to do that in my stories. So I'll do that. And then every now and then I'll break away and watch anime.
You're very detail oriented in the writing from the excerpts. Very nuanced details. And on that note, we're at the end of the interview. So, if you can give us your final thought, anything that's on your mind, and also your socials, your website for all listeners, where to find you.
Okay. Well, you can find me on Instagram at the Nkrumah Mensah. And my website is www.betweenthe-line.com. And look out for Anna Survivor. I also have Anna Ryland, hopefully coming out this year, as well as I Wish I Had a Latino.
Right. And the chart, you have the chart.
The chart, I'm looking for an artist. So if anybody is willing to do webcomic art, let me know.
Yeah, I know a ton of people after that. All right, so on that note, back to more It Came from the Radio and back to you, Mark Torres in the studio.